Roll call.
Sure. Commissioner Craig-Naughty?
Here.
Commissioner Doom?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan?
Here.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Here.
Madam Chair Shire?
Here.
Thank you, all present.
Okay, second on the agenda, the report and the posting of this agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on or before March 16th, 2018 on the bulletin board outside of City Hall. Number 3, approval of the minutes from February 15th, 2018. Are there any comments or corrections?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Yes.
Commissioner Craig-Naughty?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Doom?
Yes.
Madam Chair Shire?
Yes.
Thank you. Vote 5-0 to approve the minutes.
It's just that's one of the date. Okay, 4 is oral communications. With that, we've got one speaker card. Catherine Yurka.
Good evening, Chair Shire and Commissioners. My name is Kathy Yurka. I'm Vice President of the Glendale Historical Society, and I'm here on behalf of that organization. I wanted to announce 2 upcoming events. The first is our Taste of Spain annual membership drive. This will be on Saturday, April 28th from 4 to 6 p.m. New members who join by April 25th will get to attend for free. And those who are current members, if they upgrade to the Verdugo patron level, they will also get a free access to the event. It takes place in a gorgeous Spanish colonial revival house, and we hope that we will see you there. The second event is our what is now our annual Restoration Expo, and that is Sunday, May 6th from 10 to 4 p.m. Formerly, it's been in Brand Park, but it's actually been so successful that we're moving it to the Glendale Civic Auditorium. And we've had so many craftspeople wanting booths that we've moved it. It's been moved upstairs. And we will have 7 speakers giving talks on subjects including how to build historically compatible ADUs. A slightly soft and sore spot among some of us. The native California landscape, wood, windows, tile, and it should be an excellent event. It is free to the public, and we hope to see you there as well. Thank you.
Kathy?
Yes.
What day was it again?
Oh, sorry. It is Sunday, May 6th, and it's 10 to 4. Come one, come all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Number 5 is comments from commissioners. Anyone have comments?
I have just a small plug. The Historical Society of the Crescenta Valley will be having a booth this weekend up at Crescenta Valley Park. It's the 13th annual Hometown Country Fair at Crescenta Valley Park. It's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it says fun for the whole family. So if you're not doing anything, you can come up to Crescenta Valley Park. They've got a arts and crafts, dog parade, rock climbing, car parade, pie eating contest, and 11 inflatables for kids. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Nope, I just want to say that I look forward to attending both the Taste of Spain and the Restoration Expo. And I'm happy to hear that it's so successful and so many people are clamoring to exhibit that it's now at the Civic Auditorium. So congratulations to DGHS.
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to remind everyone, we recently lost Hassan Hagani, former director of community development, and he was a great friend of what we do, and I thought it would be nice to remember him tonight by adjourning in his memory, so I thought I'd suggest that to the board, to the commission.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, with that, we'll move to number 6, old business. And seeing that there's none, we'll go to 7, new business. 7A, 1400 Moncado. This is a review of proposed alterations.
I just want to introduce, we're going to tag team on this a little bit, but Daniel Manasarian is one of our planners, and he's making his debut not just in front of HPC, but in front of any of our design review authorities. And so let it rip.
Alrighty.
Welcome.
Good evening and thank you. This is an application to construct 2 additions totaling 199 square feet, 130 square feet facing Moncado Drive, and 69 square feet at the rear. at an existing 1,704 square foot, one-story single-family residence located in the R1 zone, Historic District Overlay Zone. The subject property is a contributor to the Rossmoyne Historic District. The project site is a 7,803 square foot corner lot with street frontages along La Zanja and Mankato Drive. 1400 Mankato Drive is a contributor to the Rossmoyne Historic District because it was built within the district's period of significance and largely retains its original character. Originally developed in 1935 in the Spanish colonial revival style, the subject property features a 1,704 square foot, one-story single-family dwelling with an attached non-conforming two-car garage that is accessed from La Zanja Drive. The bathroom addition is proposed at the east end of La Zanja facade, and the kitchen addition will face the backyard and not be visible from the street. In addition, the front entry and garage doors were installed without permit, and the applicant is requesting their legalization. The addition facing the street will maintain its asymmetrical massing of the house, and its side gabled roof has a lower ridgeline than the adjoining original roof, allowing the new construction to be subordinate to the massing and scale of the original. The addition is very modest in size and is compatible with the original style and design details. The red clay tile roofing and smooth stucco cladding will echo the original materials, and the new wood casement window, which will be somewhat visible, will also closely match original windows in terms of material, operation, design, and details. The stepped wall at the area where the bathroom additional will be retained, and a new structure will be built behind it, allowing the presence of this feature to remain while allowing for the new construction. The new stucco-clad walls of the addition facing the street will be in the location of the existing wood fence. The applicant indicates that the new windows at the east facade of the bathroom addition and the south facade of the garage kitchen wing, both of which will be somewhat visible from the street, will match the existing wood casement windows. There is not enough information to verify this match, and the condition is recommended, calling for dimensioned elevation drawings of the new windows and a drawing depicting the similar existing window for staff review and approval to verify that the new windows will be a close match. New wood doors were recently installed at the front entry and the garage. The appearance of the previous front door can be seen in the PowerPoint. The new doors are designed to be compatible with the Spanish colonial revival style of the house. Staff does believe that they may be somewhat over-detailed compared to the design of the house, which could be rectified by removal of certain features and or painting the natural wood finish. The plain concrete driveway has been replaced with pavers, which appear to be appropriate to the style of the house and the historic district. Within the last couple of months, a new perimeter wall was installed. The drawings submitted do not fully indicate the extent and appearance of the new wall. A condition is recommended requiring that the drawings to be revised to include information about the location, construction, and cladding materials of the new wall, and the treatment of their upper surface. Additionally, the two proposed street-facing wood gates will be similar to the entry and garage doors that were installed without permit, which are currently under consideration. So that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
You want to clarify that the perimeter wall's already been built?
Yeah, so the perimeter wall has already been built with a permit.
And that was on what part of the property?
That was along the rear of the property.
It's really,
On
it
the
kind of
middle,
stretches
just
from,
Somewhat,
it is in the location where this wood fence was on the left here. This wood fence is now taken down in anticipation of this project. So basically, if we go to, oh, I didn't call this up If you want, I could show you on the aerial. Basically, it's just the interior lot lines have the wall. Then the wall will make a short return once the addition is constructed. You can see it actually in the rendering behind you. And then the drawing, this is a photo montage on the screen behind me showing the gate and so this shows you the stucco wall, which will be the return of the perimeter wall just to meet the garage. So we believe that the wall is appropriate and it's up to the commission to determine whether you think the gate is also appropriate.
Thank you.
And that gate has already been installed, or just the wall has been built?
The garage door and the front door have been
That's it.
installed.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that conclude your report, or did you
Yes.
want to come up and
Um,
talk about any of the drawings?
That does conclude. I can show you exactly where the perimeter wall is.
Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah, so the perimeter wall is along, so this is, Moncado. So it will be from right here, back here, all the way to over here.
That's already done.
And it's already been, yes.
And just to remind the commission, in a historic district, we only have purview over the aspects of the property seen from the street. So the perimeter wall really isn't an issue, but the way it's been done, we did look at it, and it does meet what I think we would think was appropriate for a Spanish-style house. You will be able to consider the stucco wall, the low walls that connect to the addition, and the low wall that connects to the garage, since those are visible.
So in conjunction to the wall, there is proposed new gate on that diagram.
Okay, so there's gonna be 2 new gates. There's gonna be one right here. And then the wall's gonna continue, and then there's gonna be another gate right here.
One gate will be next to the bathroom addition that we see from the street. The other gate will be next to the garage.
You can see here too. Right there. And then this step down wall is gonna stay as is. The addition is gonna go behind it.
Do you want to talk about the other addition, just on the floor plans? for
Yeah,
people to
the
look
other
at?
addition, which can't be seen, is gonna be back here. It's an expansion of the kitchen.
And we have a picture, though it can't be seen, we have a picture of the wall. This is the back of the kitchen wall facing the backyard, and the addition will bump this out a couple of feet, 2 or 3 feet.
Okay, with that, we'll open the public hearing with a few speaker cards. So first, we have John Byram.
Good evening, John Byram. I'm the architect of the project, and thank you for your time in hearing our case. The owners are really excited about the house. It meets aesthetically what they were looking for. The owner has a disability, so the goal here is to make a kitchen and a bathroom that are usable. And we wanted to keep the additions under 200 square feet. The kitchen addition, as you can see there, we've stayed within the existing openings, so the headers of the existing openings, so that it would be smaller than the original kitchen wing, so that you can perceive what was added. And the same thing with the bathroom addition. There was kind of a party in the house of stepping down tile roofs, so we wanted to continue that, but we wanted to step it in also so one can perceive where the addition was. A little bit about the gates. There was my understanding is there was a garage door that was present in the house, because the one that's shown in this picture was hit by a car, and it's kind of a quite Cape Cod, non-compatible addition. And the front door was also not original. And so the owners took that garage that was actually in the garage and put it into the door as part of the sale of the house. And then its vocabulary is similar to the Spanish Revival style, but it's articulated and finished such that one could perceive that it's different. And so the front door was also replaced with a compatible architecture to match the garage.
I'm sorry, could you go over the garage door? What was?
Yeah, let's see. So if you could go, yeah. So this was the garage door that was originally in the house when they purchased it. It had been damaged. And so the owners of the house, my understanding, had purchased another garage door to fit in there, but it was unfinished, but it was in the garage to make a usable.
The previous owners.
Previous owner. So the garage door was replaced with this one, which was the one that was in there. And so the front door, they wanted to make a compatible front door. I think the staff had a picture of that as well. So that was done to relate to that garage door. Right. And then the gates, we thought, should also relate to that. There's a picture of I don't know whether you have it here, of the kind of the garden shed that was in the back. Looking at the wood, we didn't think it was original, but it also had some gates. And I think that's what the original owner.
We didn't include, here it is.
Yeah, so right here, there was a garden shed right there, and so it had a finish that was similar. So I think the original owner purchased the garage door to kind of match that style and get it back to a Spanish Revival, which my clients loved. And so we've tried to keep we didn't put any fenestration on the new additions that would face the street because we wanted an appreciation of the massing and proportion of the fenestration from the original house. So there is an existing window currently that's not original, that has a stained glass piece in it that's facing the same direction as our new bathroom addition. And so we put one window in the bathroom that we intend to make match in terms of vocabulary the existing windows. And we had basically put a proportion in there, but there's several window manufacturers that we're looking at, and we don't have a contractor finalized yet. So we're completely in support of staff's recommendation to bring back the plan when we do actually have a window and make sure they're okay with the proportioning. But the idea is to get a wood window that matches the same fenestration pattern, muttons and mullions of the original. So that's our goal. And the wall, the owners haven't completed the portions of the wall that face the street because we wanted to get that done. By the way, with regard to the garage door and the front door, the owners did go down to the city just to verify that the seller's original statement that you didn't need a permit to get it. They went down to the city to ask, to request, is the permit was required for the garage door and the front door, and we're told no. So I don't know, maybe things get lost sometimes when the counter is busy, but so they were very much trying to maintain the proper procedure here, and they're, we felt pretty good. We found a tile company that makes a pan tile that we feel the color is very close, and I think would be copacetic with the existing tile. They aren't exactly in the same plane, so you do have a little bit of stucco to separate it, but it should be pretty close. So was it Stephen Seams? We're trying to do an addition that is really emulative and more, as opposed to contrasting with the original architecture. It's a small addition, so we felt like it wasn't an opportunity to make a big statement or anything. It's just the existing house kind of does it for us already.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to add something, if I may. Mr. Byram is Glendale royalty, so I'm glad you're sitting down, Commissioner Morgan. Great-great-grandson of Ellis Byram. Yes. Oh. So there's a nice kind of continuity here. In fact, the Ellis Byram was involved in the development of originally the Ross Moyne, before it was Ross Moyne, kind of, I think, the subdivision of that area, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, his wife, Helga, is the one who walked the name into the post office and changed it from Mason to Glendale. Just to give credit where credit's due.
And we're thankful for that.
Not that this should favor any decision-making here, but I thought it was a fun fact for everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next speaker card, Karen Lowe.
Hi, my
Hello.
name's Karen Lowe. I live right next door to our neighbors. and I want to commend them on a really beautifully design that they've come up with. I think it fits in elegantly with the neighborhood, and I'm grateful for what this Preservation Commission has done to keep the character that we have in Glendale and Rossmoyne in particular. So I don't have any opposition to the design. My concern is the acoustics. So I come from the world of sound. I am a sound designer and reporter, editor for NPR, Marketplace Radio, and now with Wondery, which is a podcast and television production company. So I'm particularly attentive to the construction and what that will do to the acoustics. So the way the house is designed, according to the plan that you see behind you, it's going to create pretty much like a horseshoe of stucco, cement, and now water, the pool. And the opened end of this horseshoe is my house. That means that all of this sound is going to be magnified and it's going to be coming directly into my home. And that's the part that concerns me. And I don't know how you deal with the acoustics of these designs, or if you even think about them, but I would like to talk to you about them if you do. I'm not quite sure how we are, the neighbors who are impacted by these kinds of things are supposed to deal with these sort of dramatic changes to our lives. So I kind of open this up to the commission, like, help me figure out how to deal with this.
Well, being that you're a sound designer and that's your realm, do you have a suggestion for minimizing the sound impact that might be created?
Well, the one suggestion I would have are trees, which was the first thing that came down as part of this design. I mean, I've been in Glendale for 20 years, and for the time I've been in this particular house, there had always been a wall of trees. That was the first thing that came down. There was mostly ground, some brick on the ground, and now it's going to be largely cement. So they have put up a wall. That's a whole other story. But there is a wall which will help mitigate it to some degree. But this particular design is going to make it really loud for me and my neighbor next to me, on the third side of that house. So what do I do?
Jay, do you want to address
Well, this
just
is
acoustics in general, and does the city consider those in any kind of permit application?
Yeah, and this issue hasn't really come up in my experience more with the Design Review Board than with Historic Preservation Commission. We obviously are able to regulate construction noise, limiting it to certain hours. Noise in general, we have a noise element for the city, which addresses appropriate decibel levels. Casual use of the backyard generally doesn't fall into the kind of decibel level issue that it's usually mechanical equipment and things like that. I've never, I wonder, this addition is really added, the house already has this horseshoe configuration, and I'm wondering if this has been an issue.
Well, I mean,
or
it's sort of extending it.
Yeah.
Right? By
10
the
feet
house is
about,
going to
yeah.
be enlarged by 10%, and it's on the ends,
Mhm.
right? So,
No, and I understand, but to be honest, I don't believe we have any mechanism through our ordinances to address this issue. Because the Historic Preservation Commission is also the design authority for this, you're not limited to just looking at the front of the house. That's where your limitations are based on the historic character. If you felt that there was a landscape solution, and if that's something you wanted to discuss and bring the architect or the owners up at the end of the hearing, because they will have an opportunity to offer rebuttal after the rest of the public testimony is heard. Sometimes we can work things out in this kind of situation. But in terms of a mandate, I've never heard of us being able to control kind of the normal living level of noise. And there are many situations where terraces, balconies are approved that face neighbors, and we accept that there is some amount of living that happens in these spaces, and you may hear your neighbors at various points. So,
Yeah, the plans that we have don't indicate any landscaping, so I can't
Or
tell
pool at
that
all.
there's a
Yeah,
pool
yeah,
or
that was previously
landscaping.
approved, so.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh,
I'm
we
saying
don't see
the
that
current
there's a
plans,
pool.
we can't see any landscaping, we can't see there's a pool, because that's
Oh.
not something that's coming before us, so
Okay.
we have
It's
no
hard-
idea what's going on in the back.
I don't know what the landscaping is going to be either.
And that's a question, if either that can be addressed during rebuttal, or you could call the speaker back up to ask questions about that.
Sure.
Mrs. Law, I'm curious, how long have you lived there?
Since 2008,
2008. And you're,
in that particular house.
in
I
that
lived
house,
in
next
Glendale
door.
since 1995.
okay,
Right.
well, next door to this house.
Yeah. Mhm.
And when was the wall built?
The wall was built like, I guess about a month ago.
Oh, okay. What was the sound like before the wall?
There were sound issues. Everyone in my house works. I guess you guys are retired. So there was some party sounds, and normally when it went on late on weeknights, my husband and I would go and ask them to bring it down, and they did. But this setup is clearly designed for something more than just the two of them, and a party or multiple parties or family gatherings. It will be quite loud. And the surfaces have totally changed since they had their evenings out. And
Okay. So the sound is primarily from parties and entertainment in the evening.
correct.
Okay. And magnified, is it music, or is it talking, or is it doors opening? or-
Mostly just talking, loud talking. So, I mean, and that's without any cement or, I mean, the other part of the way things are constructed is the entire business end of their house faces our house. That means like the electrical components, the pump for the pool itself, it's all like right up against our house.
Okay. And do you think the increased patio concrete wall addition will make more noise or magnify the noise?
Oh, absolutely, well.
Because it's cement, or how?
Hard surfaces always reflect sound.
Okay. But the existing hard surface currently reflects the sound too, right?
Well, before they did any construction, because right now there's a pool that occupies, I'm guessing like 70% of the property in back there. It's just an estimate. But before that was, it was a wooden gazebo with a hot tub in it, and then there was like grass and ground around that. And it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case going forward. And then trees, there were like mature trees in between the houses. Those are gone. Those are just,
Okay. What is on your side of the wall? Any trees or landscaping back there?
there, on our side of the wall, there isn't much room. So it's like maybe this much room. And between the wall, so there's like, the wall comes up to, I guess, about here. And then our house starts right here.
Your house starts there. Okay. And so before the wall, there were just trees between your two properties.
Right.
And your house extends. So I'm envisioning your house is the wall, and you're inside the wall.
Yeah, my
And you
bedroom
can
is
still
like,
hear them.
my bedroom's like right above the pool.
Could we just verify, is your house on Moncado or Lozanda?
Lozanda, it's
Okay.
1114 Lozanda.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
Okay, so it's about the two-story
Right.
thing we see, and that's your bedroom. And so your primary concern in the evening with noise level by your bedroom.
I just want to sleep. I work every morning.
yeah, no, I don't. She's right.
That's all. I just want to be able to sleep in my house.
And Ms. Lowe, am I correct, is this your house here?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
So
this is a
you can
deck,
see-
this is an outdoor deck here?
Yeah, so yeah, this is my room, my deck here. Now, right here, see where this fence is? Can you see it? That's a wall.
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to come to, you can't speak from there. We have
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
record.
Yeah, we
yeah,
can't,
could
we've got to
repeat.
record you.
Sorry, you have to go back and
I'm
forth.
sorry.
Try to describe it.
Okay,
so.
if I had a pointer, see the car on the left there, so, or you see the wall goes like 2/3 of the way of the brick garden there, area there. Yeah, that area pretty much shows you where the wall is now. Yeah, so as you can see, there's not really much space to plant anything.
Thank you. I have a better idea now.
You have okay, but no idea how to help me.
They'll be discussing
Yeah,
that.
we'll
after.
discuss that.
This is just
All
the
right.
question and
Just
answer section.
clarifying.
Are there any other questions for Karen before she?
No.
No,
Okay,
not
thank
at this
you.
moment.
Okay, thank you for sharing your opinions with us. Okay, we have one more speaker card on this topic, Catherine Yurka.
Good evening again. I'm Kathy Yurka, again here on behalf of the Glendale Historical Society. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. This is a lovely house. And TGHS supports the addition, although I have nothing but the deepest sympathy for the woman who just spoke. But I'm not sure exactly what the city can do about, as Jay was saying, the noise of living. We do think that the front door and the garage doors detract from the elegance and the simplicity of the residence. They're a little fussy and over-detailed, and although they're generically Spanish in style, they don't really seem period appropriate for the residents. The door in the photograph is much better. Francesca took a look at the photograph, and she thinks it's period appropriate, and that the speakeasy might have been replaced with glass, and then the metal toe kick plate would have been added. But it just fits better. It just is. It's just simpler, and. We think something that's plainer for the garage doors would be more appropriate. I'm a little confused about the project. It sounds like some parts of it were approved and parts of it are still in process. I was wondering about the pavers, because to me a concrete driveway is really a sign of a 1920s house. And so I would have thought that you would need a permit in order to replace, but I don't know whether that's being legalized or whether that was reviewed by preservation staff or just handed out over the counter. It would be nice to have some clarification. But anyway, we ask that you consider requiring something a little bit more appropriate for the door features. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close the public session. And,
I'm sorry, a rebuttal period is allowed,
okay.
if they choose.
We thought the clients have indicated to me that they've never had a party yet, and as you can imagine, the decibels of a residence is probably more dictated by the habits and the voices of the people inside than they are probably of the construction. But a solid concrete wall, block wall, is usually a very good sound attenuator because it has mass and there's dampening there. Their intention was to plant potted vines that go over it, and in the area behind the restroom addition to put some trees back. So they wanted to do it as part of a continuous landscape plan. The excavation of the soil, they had to actually do the cutting to find out what they needed for the, they had to do soil samples to find the profile of the pool, and so that kind of dictated what the coping needed to be at the top corner. And I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't go ahead with the landscape plan, because they wanted to see how much we had available. I'm not in acoustics, but I do think that the solid wall should dampen quite a bit of the noise. I don't know whether the noise that she's referring to came before the wall was installed or after. Reflection amplifies sounds, but it also cancels it, so that sound that goes back to the house some of it will get reflected and the waves will join each other and they'll get stronger, but a lot of it will get canceled because they'll be out of phase. The therapy pool is primarily for the disability. You know, it's not to create a speakeasy, but that was there. That was why it was there. It's not a restoration project, so we didn't have period documentation of exactly what the original garage door was. They already owned a garage door from the purchase of the house, so I think finishing it, we felt it was in the same vocabulary, yet could be differentiated. So this is really not a restoration project. So I think it's in the vocabulary, and it's a part of the Spanish Revival dictum, and that it would allow one evaluating this historical resource to see what was new and what wasn't, and be able to make an informed impression of the house. So I think that rather than trying to create an artificial, a speculative door that might have been in there, because both of those things were not the original, I think the clients have made the right choice in doing a replacement that is in the vocabulary, but not trying to recreate something that would create a false reading. So if there's any other questions.
We know that the door that was there previously was not original.
Correct.
Okay.
Both of those doors.
Both of those doors. Okay.
I'm
Any other
sorry,
questions?
the front door, we know was not the original front door?
Yes.
And how do we know that?
It had label and screw devices in the side that were part of the original door that were not available at that time.
Also, stylistically, it doesn't look like it would be the original door.
This one?
It wasn't inappropriate, but
The one we're talking about?
looked like it had a veneer slab across the front of it.
And it was connected with, it had connection pieces that were of a that wasn't available at that time.
Any other questions for the architect?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll close the public session.
Well, I do have one question, just the one that he brought up. Has the sound been since the wall's been put up that she's concerned about? I mean, well, how long has the wall been up?
Only
Only
a
about a
month, she
month.
said, so.
So really, truthfully, there's not been a lot of,
Opportunity, perhaps. To
right, exactly. Okay.
Who would like to go first?
Okay, so just to be clear, what are we being asked to do, Jay? Just remind us. What points do you want us to deliberate upon
Well,
specifically?
this is design review. You're being asked to approve the design of the bathroom addition.
Okay.
You're being asked to approve the presence of 2 stucco walls adjacent to the house on either side on both facades, plus the proposed gates, which haven't yet been installed. You're being asked to legalize the front door, the garage door, and the driveway paving. One thing I didn't mention, just for all transparency purposes, we only noticed when we got these photos that the light fixtures on the garage had been changed. I think the 2 new fixtures are totally appropriate, and the old ones weren't. So I just wanted to raise that, bring that to your attention. But you may as well, and I think it's important for everyone to know, and this will become hopefully more widely known once our historic district brochure goes out, which we'll have an update on later, but that won't solve all problems, I know. But in a historic district, even things that don't require a permit, such as the front door, a garage door always requires a permit, but the front door does not, because it was installed in the existing opening. And in most houses, we're not too concerned about that, but in a historic district, obviously we are, particularly if we're losing an original door that has meaning to the house. In the case of this door, I was fairly comfortable saying it wasn't original. We could entertain either legalizing these doors, the garage doors and the front door. Our staff recommendation was that there's too much going on these. There's a lot of stuff happening. If the commission were open to maintaining these doors but modifying them, that would be one option. Or the commission can also say that these doors are not appropriate, not to legalize them, and the applicants would have to come back with more appropriate doors, which we would handle at staff level, as we would have if they had come. And I think it's an understandable confusion when you buy a house and the garage door was already in there, that you just install what you had. I don't think this is a case of people actively stepping away from our rules. But so those would be your options.
Okay.
And the perimeter wall was installed as an exemption, meaning it didn't require any further design review. The pool also was part of that exemption. And the design of it is stucco clad. There's kind of a coping across the top. And I do agree with the architect that there will be some sound attenuation there, but I'm not sure that we have a commission level or any design review authority to discuss kind of the normal sounds that people make in their backyards, so.
It's similar to windows on second floors looking into backyards of your neighbors.
Right, and we
things like that.
do,
There's-
have very specific privacy rules in the zoning code, in the design review section of the zoning code, which also would apply here, but that's not
sound.
an issue here, so this isn't privacy.
And then, would the driveway work have required a permit?
No, I should have mentioned that. The flat work does not require a permit, so that was done to presumably not realizing that in a historic district we would need to give our approval for something like that. I agree with Ms. Yurka that a concrete driveway is more appropriate, but at the same time I look at this and I don't think it's a detriment to the character of this house or the neighborhood. It's a pretty small section of driveway, but you're also being asked to legalize that paving. And if you chose not to legalize that, you'd have to give direction on what you thought was appropriate. So,
And same with the doors. We'd have to give direction on what we thought was
Exactly,
appropriate for
yeah.
the doors.
mhm. That cover everything?
I think so. Okay. Well, I guess I'll start. Sure. I think the design is lovely. I think the bathroom addition is great. I love that he stepped it back and we get to keep some of the original elements and he stepped the roof line down. All of that seems pretty copacetic. I, too, when I first saw the doors, thought they felt a little bit too modern Spanish rather than classic Spanish when I saw them. So I'm going to kind of wait to hear what everyone has to say about it, but I'm a little bit concerned about the doors. I agree with Jay. I think the pavers are a nice addition. I don't think that they detract much or are too distracting, but the doors, especially the garage door, because it is so visible. And all I can say to that is, thank goodness if you're asked to change it that you didn't go out and actually buy it. It was part of the house when you bought it. So that's all I can say to that at this point. I'm just curious to hear what everybody else has to say.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can go. I am fine with the addition, which comes to the additions, which total 199 square feet. They are, even with the addition, the livable space is below the allowable FAR.
Right.
So I think we're good there. I'm okay with the 69 square feet at the kitchen, and I think it makes sense the way that's being bumped out. Let's see. Also, the bathroom, as my colleague already said, I do appreciate the step back that we get to keep the original wing wall, the step-down wing wall, and the differentiation with the addition. So I'm okay with those things. As for sound issues, again, I don't really know that we can do anything about that from a design perspective. I think the house is already, I think the property already exists in a horseshoe shape. I think the additions are nominal. The pool, sort of went in without it's not under our purview, so if that's going to add more living noise, I would suggest that if the owners do in fact intend to put back some trees, that will help. And then I don't know if you have room, but for the neighbor, perhaps you could put up some hedges as well on your side. And maybe you can all come to terms on using shrubbery as a mitigating measure. I think we all have to deal from time to time with neighbors that are living, and maybe having guests or children or pool parties. It's a difficult thing to mitigate from our perspective. Regarding the doors, I would agree. I think the garage doors and the front door, they're not appropriate to the period. I think the scale is a little, I think over-detailed was an appropriate way to put it, but I feel like the grills in particular on the front door and on the garage door, I think the grills are much more, are bigger and heavier than we would see within the period. I think clavos are a detail that tended to be used.
What was that?
The clavos detail?
Oh, the studs.
Yeah, the stud.
I like that.
Oh, does you like that?
I didn't know that, so.
Really?
Yeah,
I
well,
knew something you didn't know.
I like it. I love that kind of stuff, so.
And I don't know if the garage doors, if it's just that they're so new, they really, for me, they really stand out. I mean, obviously, I drove by the property as well, and I always hate to ask people to paint over natural wood. But yeah, I think they'll sort of patina over time. But we might want to think, if short of, Jay, I think staff had suggested that some elements could be removed, but I don't know if that's an appropriate solution. So I'll
That was just an option.
thought.
It depends if it's the, here, I'll throw out a word, Oingapachka aspect. All the things happening. The real question would be, are you if all of the studs, clavos, grills, door handles, and fake hinges were removed, would you be okay with that door with the two segmental arches and the wood slats? And then the question, would you be okay with that with natural wood, or would you rather see it painted? No. Or would you rather see a door of a different design? So.
Right. I think generally without all of the added elements, I think the door would be similar to other doors in the neighborhood of seen on homes of this vintage. The front door I personally do not find appropriate. I think the door that was installed that we're being told was not the original door was not an uncommon door. You see that type of plain door often throughout the neighborhood. But that doesn't mean something couldn't go there with a little more detail or a different style that was of the period. But for me, not this door. So those are just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Well, I'll go. It's just, I agree with Commissioner Vartanian as far as it's only 199 square feet they're adding to it. It makes it 1903, and it's well below everything in the neighborhood. So I have no problem with the additions. It seems to be appropriate. I mean, the big thing here is the sound and the doors and the garage door. As far as the sound, I'm not a sound engineer, so I really can't address that. But I mean, it would seem to me that most of they're only adding 199 square feet, and I can't believe that the sound has increased that much with that a little bit of additional to it. So, but I don't live there. I know if the sound was bothering next door, it's something that's there for forever. So on that, I don't know how to, planting plants or whatever needs to be done. As far as, I went and looked at the garage door. It's not what I would have chosen. It's really not of the time period, but I have to agree with the architect. This isn't a restoration. They're not trying to make it to look like it was in whatever year it was built, in the late 20s, early 30s. I mean, it would have been a very plain door. That's just something that's very Glendale. I don't know if you took everything off of it, it would make it any different. I mean, the big rings on the doors and the whole bit. I believe this is just one. Is it two doors, or is it just one big door that opens?
I believe it's one overhead door that swings.
It swings open itself. I'm going to have to go back to what the architect said. I'm not really thrilled with it, but I'm not offended by it. The front door, I'm more offended by it. The one that we got today in the mail from the Glendale Historical Society seemed to be much more appropriate to it, but I see what they're trying to do with the front door and the garage door and the gate. So trying to keep it all in that same vein. So, it's hard to say, well, I want the front door changed, but I'm okay with the garage door. So I'll just go with what I mean, I hate to kick the football down the road, but I would just like to see what everybody else has to say on this thing. But to me, it's not a restoration. It was put there. I kind of like the garage door and the way it looks. I'm a big Zorro fan, and it looks very Zorro-like to me. So, that's my own opinion on that. So I will, go on to our other commissioner. Or
Actually, I would just want to ask one question, unless.
Sure.
Okay. Jay, on that little garden shed thing in the back of the house, do you have any idea whether we think that would be an original element of the house?
Find that. Well, it's out of your purview.
No, I know.
Or
I'm
not,
just thinking.
But it is hard to say. It doesn't seem like it would be. More to the point, the one you're looking at in the bottom right corner is not the one you see that's being removed for the bathroom. This feels very awkward. The one that you see from the street feels very awkward. It looks like a later addition, kind of an afterthought, not particularly carefully designed. They have similar kind of sidewalls, and the architect, if you want to reopen the hearing, might be able to address that. I haven't looked closely at the stucco to see if they feel of a different era.
The only reason I ask is because, and I know that I'm not saying we remove them or anything like that, but those doors are very similar to the doors that are on the front of these new doors. So if the doors of the little garden shed in the back are original, then I don't think that necessarily the new garage door and the new front door would be totally out of whack with this particular house. I get that they might not look like the rest of the Spanish revivals we see, but
I would say that my best opinion is that those aren't original
Okay.
at all. So.
Okay, Nick?
I am normally happy to refer to Commissioner Morgan on most issues, but since he hunts this one, I'll be happy to say that when I drove by, I looked at the garage door and didn't think that much of it as detrimental. I thought it looked very nice when I could see it when I walk up and knock on your door or anything, but I thought, what a cool looking garage door. And then when I see what the old one looked like, I think it looks even better. And since we're not in the restoration process, I see no issue with the door.
Did you want to give your comments on the additions at all, or?
No, I agree with everyone else on the addition, the square footage and aesthetics and so forth. I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so for the additions, I think they're very modest, and I think that the architect did a good job in trying to differentiate it but keep it in the style of the house, so I have no problem with the bathroom addition or the kitchen addition. I have sensitivities towards the neighbor, and I appreciate you coming before us today. I think that a good neighbor would hear that and do what they can landscaping-wise or whatever they can do to mitigate that. We don't have any codes or issues that we can really put on this project to take care of that, but I appreciate you coming forward. Regarding the, I'll just go one by one. Regarding the doors, again, we have to keep in mind we're talking about gates as well. So as far as the reason we're reviewing this today, we have to remind ourselves is we're not reviewing this because it's a restoration project. We're reviewing this today because it's in a historic district. And so we need to be very conscious of elements we are losing from our historic district. And so that's really kind of what we need to keep in mind as we're talking about this. So as it comes to the doors, they are not period architecture. They are not appropriate to the house. They are beautiful doors. They're lovely doors, but they're not right for this house on Moncado. And I think they should both be replaced, as well as the gates being looked at, proposed. If the gates were trying to match these two elements and these two elements we find that are not appropriate, then I think all of those elements should be looked at and redesigned. Reason I say that is these doors are definitely taking away from the style of the house, its elegance and the Spanish colonial. These definitely look to me more like kind of more like Mexican, like hacienda, not Spanish colonial revival style, which would have been very plain, very simple, maybe some detail in it, but not to this level. The garage doors really, really are beautiful, but they really bother me in this opening because they're gradually arced, which you would not have seen a garage door in the 20s or 30s in a Spanish colonial revival with that detail. So I would suggest, as hard as it is to have to redo these doors, that needs to take place so we don't lose a key element of our beautiful historic district. So again, the gates as well. So I defer to staff as far as if it comes back to you for design. If we go that route, I don't know that it needs to come back to commission. That would be my opinion, that staff could probably review the gates, the garage door, and the doors as far as something that would be really appropriate. And let's see what else. Oh, the pavers. Well, since we're in a historic district, in my opinion, I would have never approved pavers for a historic district. So concrete, as lovely as it is, was the material of the period. And so my opinion would be we would go back to concrete driveway. I think I've covered all the issues. I do agree with staff's conditions as far as the windows. I think we do need to see the dimensions and elevations to make sure that the profile and detail are appropriate and matching the existing windows as close as possible. I think the wall and the sides are fine, the stucco. Those don't bother me. It's just really the doors and the gates that need to be addressed. So with that said, do the commissioners have any other comments? Does that solidify views, change your views?
What doors would you recommend?
Like I said, I defer to staff's recommendations.
Staff.
There are a lot of options that are well appropriate for this style, and so I don't think we need to try to describe those here today without pictures or images. If staff needs input, I'm sure they can reach out to each one of us if that's necessary.
No, we could figure that out.
A question, though. Supposedly they went to staff about these doors and the garage door, and staff said it was okay?
We don't know who they spoke to. They didn't speak to me, obviously. And it is, I believe in good faith they approached the city and did ask about the doors. Front doors are confusing for some of our building and safety staff and possibly even some of our planning staff. I hope that's not the case. I don't know who they spoke to. But in a historic district, I think our team knows that we need to look at everything that you see from the street, including light fixtures, doors, pretty much every detail. So I can't really address that. We haven't done enough cross-training with our colleagues in different divisions of community development. We talk about it and plan to do it. And this would be something we would be talking with them about, definitely.
I mean, it's possible they stopped at the city, asked a general question. If they didn't give the address, gave the address.
Yeah.
We can't talk.
Okay,
Sorry.
we can't.
Sorry, public session's closed.
Yeah. I can see how this could happen. It's unfortunate, and I feel bad when it does happen. But at this point, we can only move forward with what we've got, so.
I'm happy to answer your question offline, Nick, if you want to
Okay,
know
well,
designs that would be more appropriate.
Yeah, if we work with the architect and get appropriate, I know they found the garage door in the garage existing. And if the condition is to put a more appropriate garage rather than the old one in the picture, I can understand that. And you make valid arguments for that. My grandpa was a cement man, bricklayer. I understand the cement driveway, looking at other streets, making it more appropriate too for that. That's a valid point as well. I can be persuaded.
Jay, regarding pavers, I feel like pavers are generally being approved even in historic districts. Do you have a general sense of what we're doing? I mean, I'm not certain that I would request concrete to go back in instead of the pavers, but
Yeah,
feel like
I agree. I'm a big fan, personally and historically, of concrete. We do have strange zoning rules that require a certain amount of a driveway be decorative. We have tried, and in a future code revision, I will try to make sure that that doesn't apply to historic districts because I don't think it's appropriate. We have used where there's kind of the ribbon of brick on the sides and then the main part of the driveway is concrete. Even that I'm not sure is typically appropriate. So if you've seen pavers in historic districts, I hope that it hasn't been something that we've approved, unless it's possible for new construction, which we've had very little. But there is a house on Ethel, and I can't remember what that driveway, how that was paved. But I personally and our team focused on historic things is conscious of original driveway materials and character. And so I can't address where that may have happened.
Okay, but typically within a historic district, if someone's coming in to change out their driveway, we are looking at concrete solutions.
Right, and the fact that when we're talking about we're not in the restoration business, one of the things we tell everyone as districts are being proposed is that we will never make someone restore their house back to its original character, but when they do come to us for approval for work, our goal is to bring things close, and in many cases we don't know what was there originally, so we're speculating to some degree, but we also know what typical materials and styles are, and the idea is that incrementally over time we're bringing the district closer to its early appearance, and so that is our goal. So it's not necessarily restoration if we don't know what was there, but through the rehabilitation process we're bringing it closer to what we think fits into the neighborhood.
Right, and I think that's an important message to be given as new districts are coming forward and as people are knocking on doors and helping residents understand the intent of historic districting, as you said, is to bring homes back to as close to original as they may have been, or back to their period appearance, even if not, we won't always know exactly what was there, but we know by looking around. We have a lot of reference points.
So what I'm hearing is then if we want the garage doors removed, then it would be appropriate to take the pavers out too and put concrete back in, which is a major undertaking. I mean, I don't know. I don't like the front door at all, but I think the applicants came with good faith to the city of Glendale, and the city said, okay, you can do these things, and they have done them, and now they've come in front of the Historic Preservation Commission, and we're kind of saying, well, the city wasn't really on the ball.
Advise the commission that this situation comes up more at DRB than it has so far at HPC, to the extent that you can do so while we understand and sympathize and we have empathy for people who've been through that situation. And I would never say, I've talked to the applicants, who are very nice people. We never know what really happened, who they spoke to, and to base a decision on that, I think is a little tenuous and a little difficult to really have a sound basis for your decision making. But we can always say what's appropriate and what isn't, and that's really the commission's job. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any other comments? Are we ready for
So I
motion?
just have another quick question. As far as our purview over landscaping, it was suggested that the applicant may be willing to put back some trees. Is that something we can?
You can do that, but when you
or
look, I think the site plan
just-
for the pool was passed around.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
Is there no room?
on the side of the property that addresses the neighbor's concern, there's almost zero room to do anything. The
have to be
architect did say that they're planning to put vine pockets against the wall and grow some sort of creeping vine material, which could help break the sound. But I don't see space there for trees. I think the area where they are suggesting they want to plant trees would be on the west side of the property.
Yeah, they would have to use probably just pots with some kind of vines or something, but that would be.
Yeah, so
Okay, it looks like we don't have room.
Is anyone ready to make a motion? Do we have more discussion?
I'll try to Oh, we don't.
Sometimes what DRB usually does is they ask us to read back the conditions that we've heard so far, which gives you the opportunity to see if you were, some of you are at odds on them, to kind of see where these ideas. So I'll just read each of the ideas that we've heard. I believe for the most part there was consensus, or at least a majority, looking at the garage door, the front door, and the gates as not being appropriate to the style of the house. There is general consensus, total consensus, that the addition itself is appropriate and well-designed and should be approved. I believe no one mentioned the light fixtures that I had mentioned, so unless we hear otherwise, we will legalize those. And then I'm not sure that there was consensus on the driveway paving at this point. And there wasn't full consensus on the doors either, but that was, I believe, Commissioner Vartanian. Now I'm not sure, but anyway, so those would be the two open issues, the doors, all four of the doors, and the pavers.
Okay, and then how about on the staff report, the top of the back page,
Our
conditions
staff
noted there?
conditions?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe we heard that the condition about the new, condition 1 about the new walls is easy for that to be corrected on the drawing and to show that those are existing, approved under a prior permit. The garage doors we mentioned, and then the windows, I believe I heard from at least one of you that the condition to have the windows match the existing windows is going to be retained.
That's 1 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, staff's condition number 2, I believe, is addressed since we speculated that you might be inclined to modify or replace the garage and the front doors. We felt that the gates should be designed in a similar but perhaps lesser way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sure what we have on the driveway. Do we have consensus on retaining the pavers, or did we
I'm okay
want
with
to
the pavers.
see concrete?
I'll trade the pavers for the door.
And what do you mean by that?
I would keep the
You'd
pavers
rather
in
have the-
exchange for a new door.
Interesting.
Because I understand the cost of
No,
the door.
you're
but
saying
not
you'd-
the cost of pavers.
You're saying you would prefer the doors be changed and you would forego the pavers? Is that what you're saying?
Keep the pavers,
Keep the
change the
pavers,
door.
change the door.
Yeah.
Since they're in, and, because that is a tremendous cost. I wish we'd seen it before, but it's already there.
And just remember, though, as sensitive as we need to be to the homeowners, we don't take cost into consideration. We're here to abide by
That's true.
code, historic districts.
No,
It's in our purview.
yes, but
I mean, it is. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the project with the condition that the front door, the garage doors, and the gates need to be changed to something more period appropriate at staff's discretion. That the conditions 1 through 3, or conditions 1 and 3, as noted in the staff report, are kept or adopted, and that the driveway pavers do not need to be changed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Right, so just to be official, let's just legalize the light fixtures while we're at it. So.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion to approve the project with the conditions stated and a second. So we'll do a roll call. Commissioner.
Can you read back what exactly?
conditions?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
okay,
conditions, everything.
We're approving the project, which is approving the bathroom addition, the conditions that are, and the two stucco-clad walls that we see from
Right.
the street. Let me add that. And then the condition is to replace the front door, the garage, and the gates with new materials that are appropriate to the period and style of the house, to be determined by staff. Another condition to retain staff conditions 1 and 3, so that's really 2 conditions. A condition to retain the driveway pavers as installed, and the final condition to legalize the light fixtures at the garage. So we had a motion and a second, so we'll take a roll call. Commissioner Doom,
Yes.
Commissioner Crignati,
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Yes.
Chair Shire?
No.
Okay, so motion passes 4-1. Approved with conditions.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, we had one speaker card that arrived late after the public session had been closed, so we are foregoing that one. On to next business, 7B, 750 West Kenneth Road. This is the review of a proposal to demolish the garage and construct a new garage, to be continued to HPC hearing May 17th, 2018, which is that just for our knowledge?
It's a legal requirement.
Okay, so nothing
It
else
was-
to report on that?
It was just so some of these things tonight are, I'm sorry, some of these things tonight are a little new for the commission. That case we were expecting to be heard tonight. Public notice had gone out and the
Okay.
site was posted. Issues came up that prevented it from being heard tonight, so we continued to what we call a date certain.
Okay.
Some things get continued to an unknown date, and then we have to notice the project again. When we do it to a date certain, we don't have to renotice it, but we will have the sign that's on the site posted to have the May date, so.
Okay, then with that, we'll move to item 7C, 1539 El Rito Avenue. This is a Glendale Register nomination and a Mills Act contract application.
Thank you. So next we have the Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application for this Monterey Revival House at 1539 El Rito Avenue. It's located in the Verdugo Woodlands neighborhood as shown on this map, and it was built in 1932. The original architect was Edward Mayberry. He's a pretty interesting figure in the architectural field. He was born in Sacramento, but was raised primarily in Santa Barbara, and his father was also an architect. He attended USC very shortly and then earned his degree at Berkeley, and by 1907 he had started a firm with his partner, and it was known as Mayberry and Parker. And both at his firm and individually, he designed a range of buildings in the Southern California area. Some notable ones are the Prospect Boulevard Bridge in Pasadena, the Playhouse Theater in Pasadena, the Zaca Creek Bridge as well. And he was known, well, the firm was known for designing steel structures and modern materials such as reinforced concrete, and he was very good at designing earthquake-safe buildings as well. And he also designed the house for the original occupants of 1539 El Rito, the Joy family. And although he designed a number of notable structures, and a few of them are actually designated resources, it does not appear that his work is that of a master architect in a local or regional context. A number of subsequent residents also lived at this property, including Curtis and Myrna Stanley. Mrs. Stanley was a dedicated volunteer in the community, and she was president of the Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association. And the Stanley spent a number of years restoring the house. However, none of the original or subsequent residents appear to be significant figures in history. And the applicants have proposed the name the Joy Stanley House, and this doesn't follow the current guidelines of our naming policy, but the commission may deviate from the policy as they see fit. So as mentioned before, this is a Monterey Revival house. At the front facade, we see a large second-story balcony, which is one of the key character-defining features of this style. We also have wood columns and railings that support the balcony and the porch. The front entry is a bit offset from the center, and we also have an original front door and various double-hung wood windows with operable shutters and original wrought iron shutter dogs. The west facade is also very similar, with similar double-hung wood windows. On the second story, a number of them have awnings that were added at a later date. And then a portion of this facade also hangs over the first story as seen in the corner. And at the east facade, we have a large chimney and a set of brick steps. And the rear facade has some interesting features. We have a partial second-story balcony that connects to the master bedroom through a pair of French doors. We have the original service porch, and then a large sitting area paved with bricks. And then there's also an original interesting hinged window at the second-story balcony seen in this corner. And then the remainder of the backyard has a lot of green space with the lawn, various trees, planters, and then a shed added at a later date. So there's a number of changes that have been made to this house, but overall it retains a lot of its historic integrity. The first change is that the house appears to have been restuccoed at some point. This is pretty evident when you look at the texture on the different sides of the house, especially where the chimney is at the east facade, but staff examined the stucco during a site visit, and we were able to conclude that the new stucco is appropriate and in line with the style of the house. 3 porch columns were also replaced at the front facade due to wood deterioration. The garage door was also replaced at a later date. 2 shutters have been removed at the west facade, and you can see the original shutter dogs are still there. And then we have a water pipe also at this side, which is a bit intrusive. The chimney was rebuilt in 1994 following earthquake damage. There's also a kitchen window at the rear facade replaced at a later date, and then a low block wall at the rear facade added at a later time as well. But staff did conclude that the property is eligible under criterion 3 for its architecture. Most of the changes were done to the exterior and the landscaping, but they are appropriate, and the house still retains the majority of its character-defining features and is a good example of the Monterey Revival style. And staff also recommends the following conditions, including the installation of a wood door for the garage, the replacement of the 2 shutters at the west facade, the replacement of the kitchen window with the wood window, and adding stucco over the block wall at the rear, and then finally removing and relocating the water pipe also at the west facade. Thank you, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Could staff talk a little bit about why you felt the architect didn't rise to the level of a master architect with some of the well-known works that he designed?
From the research that we had gathered, the majority of his work was in the Santa Barbara area, which is listed in the staff report, and he has done some notable stuff in the Pasadena area, and this was the only project I think that I saw that was in Glendale, but we probably just would need more research to evaluate that. He was definitely an interesting figure that did a number of notable projects, but
Yeah, if I
maybe
could
you can
add to that. We have had many projects by architects of some note who've done beautiful projects, not just in Glendale, but anywhere really. And we have a really higher threshold for when we recognize this specific work as being an important piece of an architect's body of work. And in general, the applications that we receive don't give us enough information to make a real sound judgment based on the context of that body of work, and because certainly even the greatest architects don't always make masterpieces. This is a beautiful house, it's fantastic, and I'm sure it fits in nicely within his other projects, but we do have a high standard for that. So for example, when we looked at the Assistance League building, the former Kiefer and Irick Mortuary, that was a building by Alfred Priest. We have a long history of understanding Priest's role in the city of Glendale. We have his extant works. We know which works of his we've lost. We have a body of knowledge that helps us see him as a master architect specifically to our city. We have other properties by name brand architects where you kind of don't have to say that much more to understand that a Neutra or Schindler are important works in our region. But with many of our other architects, we do have trouble kind of making that judgment. And so staff has been, and the commission over the years, has been quite consistent in trying to stick to that standard.
But a question, so he's known for a lot of his works in Santa Barbara, and he may be considered a master designer in Santa Barbara. Would that be applicable to here, or just?
If all of that information were included in the staff report with an analysis that told us, looked at this house in the context of his other work and perhaps work of the era, it's a fairly high bar to kind of be the master architect that we would allow, that I think we should allow a designation to be made for. And it becomes less of an issue when we have beautiful works of architecture that clearly meet criterion 3, and you don't need that extra bump.
Okay.
And what we always tell owners, and I think I've mentioned to the commission before, all of the information that we do receive about these architects, we keep in the file. It's part of the public record. The information's there. A future scholar, like we have, people have done reports. We have work on Alfred Priest that we have in our files that places him in a bigger context, and we just don't have that for most of our other architects.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for staff, or we can open the public hearing?
I have a question. Yeah. You mentioned earthquake damage to the fireplace. And looking at the permits, it says the fireplace was improved in 1993, January, and the earthquake was in 1994. And the original fireplace was brick. So I'm wondering what was first done in 93, and then what collapsed in 94?
Good question. Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, there's also many earthquakes.
Yeah,
Does it say
yeah, there
which
was
earthquake?
Damage
Well,
that
there
goes
was
back to 1971.
Yeah,
there was
the
one in 91.
It took them 22 years to
87 maybe?
repair it?
And
or-
thank God they fixed it before the 94 earthquake. It could have hurt
Right.
someone. So I don't know that we can answer that. I don't know that the current owners will be able to, but it's certainly a question you could ask them.
So the current design was done after the before earthquake with the stucco
Well, the-
fireplace.
the
Is it
permit
stuccoing
is-
over old brick, or is it
Yeah.
No, well, it's probably a new construction. It
the
doesn't
new construction?
look like a brick fireplace.
Well, it probably
Probably
didn't look
was
great.
stucco. No, it probably was stucco originally.
Yeah, it was stucco.
Very likely
On a
was.
Monterey.
It could have been,
Or did it collapse
Could
and
have
they
been
built a
brick.
new one? Or?
Probably.
Okay.
yeah, that's a level of detail we didn't get to.
Well, he was a,
I
he was
was
a master at
curious.
earthquake stuff. Maybe he could just sense when it was coming.
Right?
He knew. He had to be prepared.
But it didn't work. If it was damaged in the 94 earthquake as
Yeah.
well,
That's very true.
Okay.
again,
Any more questions for staff? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. We have a speaker card, Byron Taylor.
Thank you all for letting us come. I don't have much to say, but I'd like to answer some of the questions. I'm not sure where the year 93 comes from. The permits actually do show it was September of 94 for replacement, is what I'm seeing.
Is that which page?
I'm sorry, where is it here? And we also have I believe, we just received it recently, a permit that the prior owners filed with the County of Los Angeles in 94 for an assessment for the change of the fireplace.
That's not it.
To answer the questions on the fireplace, it was originally, in our conversations with the Stanley family, they purchased the house. It was originally stucco over brick, and in the 94 earthquake, it came down. Not only did the chimney have damage, but there was some damage in the rafters in the roof and in the garage, and so it was rebuilt in 94.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Did you want to talk any about why you're bringing this before us today, or?
We
You don't
love
need
the
to.
house. We started looking for a house last summer, and we didn't know what we wanted. We just wanted a house of character. We found this house and instantly fell in love with it. And we knew nothing about Monterey Revival, and we knew nothing about Edward Mayberry until close of escrow. We have done extensive research on both of those features. I've been doing my own personal survey of Monterey Revivals, and I've identified 76 in the city of Glendale. And 4 of them were built in the period of 26 through 1940. This one was in 1933. We're just tickled with being able to be custodians of this house, and we're excited. You know, we're 15 years away from its 100th anniversary. It's a wonderful house, and as we walk through, we learn something new every day. Adding to Mayberry, we did not include him as a significant architect in our application because we understood the definition of region to be the Glendale area. If that region was the greater Southern California area, his impact is quite significant. Starting in 1913, he was on an advisory board for the Los Angeles County in developing building ordinances for safety of buildings. He also, which was not mentioned, is he received his second degree in engineering from MIT in 1906. So he was not only an architect, but he was a civil engineer as well. And he is also accredited with the Parker Mayberry Bridge in Pasadena, just a few miles from us, in the Arroyo, which is a designated historic district, that Arroyo Wash area. And his bridge is at the base of the iconic Arroyo Bridge, the very large one known as Suicide Bridge. And it's still standing today, his bridge at the bottom. He's also very well known for many buildings in the downtown Los Angeles, and he also designed the community Naples in Long Beach. He built the Alamitos Lagoon and the bridges going to the island through his design. So there's many other factors of his background. But going back to the house, we're just very excited to preserve what's there. We're very honored that we were able to take over this house, and the work that the Stanleys have done and hearing what they have done to preserve it and bring it back. And we've talked about all the conditions, and we have, you know, no problems with these conditions.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question. Are you okay with all the cost recommendations the staff has provided, or with all the recommendations of staff?
He just
he
said
just said
yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was looking at the file. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker card, Cynthia Dyer.
Commissioner Steyer, or Madam Steyer and Commissioners, thank you again for coming to visit our home. I reiterate exactly what Byron said. This is such a joy. And when you said that a house chooses a family and not the other way around, it really did hit us. The Stanleys put so much into this home. And interestingly, we read a real estate ad that said, do you want to live in a home that would belong to Zorro? And I had to laugh when you said earlier, the house was in really terrible condition when they took when the Stanleys took the house over. We know from 1950 from the ads that you couldn't even see it from the street. So there's a lot of work that's been done, a lot of love, and we just hope to continue to do that. And again, we are really looking forward to celebrating its birthday this year. It'll be 85 in October, and we hope to take it much further. So thank you again.
Thank you. And the next speaker card, Catherine Yurka.
Good evening again. I'm Kathy Yurka, and I'm actually here on behalf of the Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association. Myrna Stanley was the beloved president of our organization for many years. She and her husband moved to Texas about 6 months ago. We are so grateful that Byron and Cindy purchased the house because Myrna had wanted to put it on the register, but she didn't think she was going anywhere, and then suddenly they were moving before she had a chance. And she knew that they would be good stewards of the property. I'm here just to support the nomination. It's an exceptional house, as I know you were able to see, but also to support the name, Joy Stanley. The Stanleys lived there, I think, about 40 years, and they both, but Myrna in particular, was just such a huge contributor to our community. And what I loved about her was that she disagreed with, a lot of things that happened, agreed with some, but she just always kept a sense of humor, and everybody liked her. Like, she wasn't confrontational or aggressive. She's wonderful. And even though she's in Texas, she continues to advise the HOA on various things. She looks at plans. She's up in arms about Verdugo Park. Like, she's just wonderful. And I think this would be I know that you do have some flexibility. I just think this would be such a nice tribute, even if it's not eligible because of Myrna. It's one of the reasons it's special is because of Myrna. So anyway, thanks for your consideration.
If you're watching, Myrna, hello.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public session. Discussion among commissioners.
I'll go first.
Okay.
You know, the first thing I want to say is woohoo! I mean, it's really nice to meet Byron Taylor and Cynthia DeGuer. They were just the best. I mean, I wrote down here that I would like to thank them both for nominating this lovely house and giving an exquisite tour and a history lesson on Monterey revival of homes in Glendale, specific in homes in California and specifically Glendale. I love being taught by people. When I come to the property and the guy starts to tell you all, not just about the house, but about Monterey, excuse me. Monterey revival, sorry. And he hands out this brochure of all the homes in Glendale. And it is a fascinating read. I mean, it's got illustrations. It's great, and and he takes you in the garage and he shows you where the French doors that they're going to be putting on and around the house. It was a lovely tour. They are lovely stewards for the house. I'm so happy, but they're humble. They want the house to be part of the Stanley family. I mean, I very much support Joy Stanley as for the name for the property, because Myrna did a lot of things for the thing. When we have our Memorial Day, she was the one that was behind the Memorial Day down at the City of Glendale every year. She worked on it religiously. Just a really great lady, and everything that Kathy had said, she may be gone, but she's really not gone. She's still around. But the house is, everything about that house is wonderful. I know as stewards, they will put it all back together exactly the way it was, And when we went, they had already read the report. They agreed with all the conditions that the city has put on there. There was no, well, we don't think this or we don't think that. They just were like, okay, that needs to be done, that needs to be done. And we're going to do it far better than anything that the city says. We're going to make it even better. And those are the stewards that you want on the historic register. So I support everything the city has said, but I support them more than anything for being stewards for this house. And I hope they live there for a long, long time.
So you're suggesting we establish living landmarks?
I wish. In this case, I wish. I have to, privately, this was the greatest little read, and you could go to the homes, and, it's great. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Who wants to go next?
Did you want to go? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, no, I can't top that. I was on the same tour, so Commissioner Morgan and I were at the house at the same time, so I also have that wonderful handout. Yes, you are the perfect stewards for this home. The amount of research you've done is just phenomenal. Your nomination papers are incredible, and your love for the home is so obvious. So I look forward to the 100th anniversary celebration. Criterion 3 states that the proposed historic resource embodies the distinctive and exemplary characteristics of an architectural style, architectural type, period, or method of construction. I think the method of construction for this house was not characteristic, but exceptional because of the architect you had building the house, and the thought that was put into the structural integrity just due to the type of work he did. It also exemplifies all of the characteristics of a prototypical Monterey revival style house. It's beautiful, and I think it's interesting that with all of the research you've done, I think I'm understanding this may be the only home of this style that he did, or maybe even the only home. I'm not sure about that. but I fully support the nomination, and I thank you for bringing it forth.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We could go on and on. Well, we could go on and on all night. It's a really great house, and you guys are really awesome for bringing it forward, and it definitely landed in the right hands. So, yes, I think we're all excited to be invited to the 100-year anniversary of this house. So. No pressure. But thank you again for bringing it forward. It's really great.
Thank you. That's all been said.
Well, thank you again for bringing this before us. It was a pleasure to meet both of you, and you have a beautiful house, and you're taking such amazing care of it. I thoroughly enjoyed reading your submission and all the staff report, and agree with my commissioners, agree with the conditions that staff put on it, and know that you're in full agreement, which is the best situation to be in for all of us. And just thank you again for bringing it before us. With that, do we have a motion? Oh.
Well,
Do you have discussion about the name?
well, can we name it whatever we want? Or do
No.
we have to go?
We have
Yeah.
naming guidelines that we have, that we've standardized. If we would like staff to read those to us or remind us of those, we can then talk about the naming.
I can't remember if I have them in my binder. In general, our naming policy focuses, we kind of established a hierarchy of naming. If there was a person of significance under criterion 2, we would name it after that person or persons. There could be multiple significant people on a property. If barring that, we have a default policy of naming it after the first owner. And staff, staff like Smyrna too. So we, it isn't part of the normal policy, but the commission has full rights to name it however you like.
Yes.
We've had a few naming situations that ultimately staff wasn't crazy about, but it was voted on, and that's what it became. This wouldn't be one of those because Mrs. Stanley has been a very important figure in the neighborhood for some time, and her work actually bears fruit. It's visible. It's not just we've talked before about people who are philanthropists who do good work in the community, but maybe that doesn't mean enough for them to be significant for the property. And since you're not naming it or finding it eligible under criterion 2 for Myrna Stanley's role, if you wanted to do it as an honorific, it's, you're able to.
I only have it to read.
Oh, that's
Oh,
okay.
you
I
found
think.
it. Good.
I found it.
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it.
The U.S. Department of Interior defines a historic name as ordinarily reflecting one or more of the following: original owner or builder, significant persons or events associated with the property, innovative or unusual characteristics of the property, accepted professional, scientific, technical, or traditional names. If an appropriate historical name is uncovered by the research, please enter it onto the form.
Yeah, I think that's not our specific
that would be-
guideline.
that
That would
sounds
just
like
be
for the
the
National
general
Register.
national
Oh, the
register.
national, oh, I'm
But-
sorry.
No, thank you, because
Thank you.
that reflects sort of where we took
Yeah.
ours, but ours were developed by the commission. I can't find it in my
That's okay.
thick
It
binder
was-
here. But
We'll go.
It was, owner, or builder, or architect if we knew, right, then owner.
I think
First
well,
owner.
actually, we have
First-
staff has fought against naming after builders and architects
Okay.
because
Oh,
to
that's
do
right,
so,
there's
we had the Proc house proposed as a name, and then soon after that we had another house of similar
Right.
character by
Yeah.
Proc. So we would have had Proc
So
1, Proc
first
2.
residence.
And again, it kind of goes back to the discussion we just had about architects and their significance. Builders rarely would one of their projects be so significant that it would bear their name, unless perhaps it was their own house, obviously. Architects, we did, one of the houses just north of Rossmoyne is the Gray Sherwood House, which was named, the architect's name Ben Sherwood, who's an architect of interest. Unfortunately, we later designated another Sherwood property, but the commission did not add Sherwood's name to that, and that kind of suggests the problem naming after builders and architects. So we don't recommend that in general.
So first occupant of the home.
First occupant, says staff in our recommendation, we stuck with what we believe
Yeah.
the policy tells us to call it the Joy House. but the commission has, obviously opportunity to do something different.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the HPC recommend to the city council that the property at 1539 El Rito Avenue be called the Joy House, be designated as a historic resource in the Glendale Register of Historic Resources, and that the city council authorize the city manager to enter into a Mills Act contract with the property owners for property tax savings, with the following conditions. Should I read through them, or should we say the conditions that are listed in the report?
You can read them if you want.
Okay. Installation of a wood garage door of appropriate design, replacement of the 2 removed shutters, replacement of the kitchen window at the rear facade with a new wood window of appropriate design, cladding the contemporary low block walls at the rear porch with stucco to match the house. Oh, with the water pipe.
The water pipe.
Oh, it's not there, sorry.
Oh, we forgot.
Was it removal of the,
Yeah,
was it?
it's on the screen.
Change the location. Oh, okay. Yeah, remove the water pipe at the southwest corner.
There on the right-hand picture.
Okay. And then,
Yeah.
okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Morgan?
Well, I have one question.
Yes.
I agree with everything, but I would like the name to reflect Myrna Stanley's, and it's the Joy Stanley House. Other than that, I have no problem with everything. So if
Okay,
I,
roll
friendly
call,
amendment.
Your
please.
choice, we have an open motion, so your choice would be either the chair could, or the motion could be withdrawn for further discussion by the person who made the motion, or you would have to then vote against the property.
We can't do a friendly amendment?
What's that?
Can't do like a friendly amendment to the motion?
I think we just have to just pull it back,
Oh.
have your discussion, because the motion that was made was to designate it as the Joy House.
It-
So if Commissioner Vartanian withdraws her
Well,
motion.
someone seconded, right? So we'd have to.
no, nobody seconded.
No one yet?
I did.
Yeah,
you
he
did.
It was
did.
seconded.
Sorry.
So it's up to
Yes.
Commissioner
Yeah, it's-
Bertani if
it's
she
in
wants
play
to
right now.
withdraw. Otherwise, we're doing roll call.
Right,
We'll take roll call.
Okay,
all right.
roll call.
So we had Commissioner Vartanian motion, second by Commissioner Crignati.
Mhm.
Commissioner Doom? Oh, are you? Commissioner Doom voted affirmative, yes?
No, I voted yet.
Oh, okay.
Thinking.
Vote for it. You okay with that?
Yeah, with apologies to Myrna.
Who's watching?
Lightning bolt's not gonna come down. like
No,
an email.
no.
You need to make your own
have-
decision.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
I would say yes, but with apologies to Myrna, I really think the house should reflect.
Okay,
Her
we'll have to
40
watch the
years.
video, but we won't put that in the record.
Yeah.
Chair Shire?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0 to designate the house as the Joy House, include the 5 staff conditions, and recommend Mills Act to council. Council also would have the ability, if they were so inclined, to change the name at their hearing. So there would be
And
another
they have done that.
opportunity to do that. And perhaps if commissioners who felt inclined testified to that effect, you could make your case there.
Okay.
So.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you again. Okay, item number 8A, Historic District Brochure Update.
Which seems timelier than ever. as the
Yes.
Earlier item. Staff has made more progress than we've made in the last 2 years on the brochure. I was extremely hopeful it was going to be on your table tonight. It did not work. I continue to be extremely hopeful that it will be on in your packet for the next hearing.
Okay.
We're doing our best and just got hit with another kind of largish project that hopefully everything will work out. So it's coming soon, and that's my only update.
Great.
So,
Next
but
slide.
aside from the fact that it looks marvelous, it's really good,
Good.
visually. Hopefully you guys like that part of it, and then we'll just get all the information in there that we're trying to squeeze into a 3-fold, 3-panel brochure. So that's kind of one of the trickier parts. But so far it's reading pretty clearly. So.
Great, thank you. Look forward to seeing it.
I'm sure.
8B, property information portal update.
Yeah, this one we have less control over. We have told you again for some time that we're this close to having the property information portal contain all of the properties that have been either designated or surveyed, and also to have the portal have a graphic interface that makes very clear when a property is historic, i.e. a big red word historic shows up when you pull up an address, and there will be a link to the DPR form and information on how to interpret the DPR codes, so the status codes. A vendor, this is going to happen through our existing CSI program, which is the city's permitting database, and then also through our program or a database called FileNet, which is where all of our permits and different things are filed away. We have to work with an outside vendor for that, and they ran into a snag, I've learned recently, that they believe is going to be resolved by next month, I said, so I asked, is it safe to say we think June is really when it's going to happen? And IS told me that at this point is what they're hoping for, but it's kind of out of their hands also with this vendor. So, but we're doing our best. We recognize how important this is. Ultimately, if it goes up in June, all of the information from the South Glendale survey probably won't go in right on the first immediately, but there's a chance that it will. I don't know exactly when we're going to have the DPR forms for that, but we will be able to have the addresses up at least. So, so we're working on that, and that will be a huge step forward from where we are right now. And unless you have any questions?
Great.
I just had a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jay, this information portal is sort of like a subset of the data that's available to city staff.
No.
Right?
The reason it's great is this is a public portal on the city website, and it's going to be on the community development site. This community development covers building and safety, planning, neighborhood services, and housing, and all of our historic preservation work is there. So it's going to be prominently, it already is, I think many of you know how to use it already, and I think that interface is working pretty well. And if anyone on the commission or in the public has issues with that, let us know, and we'll just convey it to IS. But so within the existing framework of the portal, which can tell you what the permit activity is for ongoing permit activity for projects, this will also, be in the same place. So it's the first time we're going to have this public interface, where right now we receive scores of calls a week. Is this property historic? Is this property historic? And we manually have to go through our records and look things up. We are still going to some degree, have to do that for the properties that haven't been identified through survey, but this is going to be a huge step forward so that all of that information is public and easily found.
So on another note, does staff have an opportunity, for example, the applicants we had here earlier who stated they had gone to the counter and inquired about permits for some of the changes to their house, is there an opportunity for staff to make notes about, situations like that, so that we can actually go back and, sort of verify?
In an ideal world, yes. The counter is so hectic that when people are coming in with a project where we have a set of drawings and we're moving forward, those things get logged in. When we issue exemptions, those are all logged, even though that's never, it's just between staff and the applicant ultimately. Those are logged into the system. But if someone's just coming in and saying, I have an informational question, do I need to get a permit for this? I don't think that's ever been logged, and I think it would be really tough to do that. And even if that happened, what if someone gave the wrong information? We'd know who to talk to. We'd go say, oh, don't ever do that again, which would be great, and that would be helpful, but I don't think there's any ability right now with staffing levels, and even historically, I don't think any of that information is logged. But if that's something of interest, I could certainly check, because I don't have as much knowledge about the counter as a lot of my colleagues do.
I think it would be helpful in general, one, from an accountability perspective, as you just mentioned, but two, and sorry, because I don't remember all the codes, I think you had said earlier that for a garage, permits are required, garage doors, not necessarily for the front door, but in historic districts, they need to be reviewed.
And in hindsight, there's a chance. I've always been told that garage doors require a permit, and I realized after I said that out loud, someone told me recently that if it's in the same opening, it's a similar situation. I thought the issue was they needed to review garage doors for safety, to make sure there's the electric eye and the operating mechanism is safe. So that's something I could check into and verify and bring back to the commission. If I find out, we're going to include that information in the brochure, certainly. So if I found out that garage doors also currently don't require a permit, because a lot of things have changed over the years. For example, you don't need a permit for a wall under 7 feet, but we're still going to require people to get approval for walls in historic districts and Glendale Register properties, and we're working out that mechanism right now because the law changed in January. So I could certainly look into that and see, just make sure that I understand the garage door permitting requirements.
And again, I think, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You can finish.
No, I think ideally the thought is that if somebody just walked in and asked a general question, hopefully the person behind the counter would ask the address, or at least try to determine if they're in a historic district where they need some type of review, as opposed to just,
Yeah,
do you see what I'm saying?
I
So
can't
it's
promise
just
that. There's a lot of churn at the counter, and there's a lot of effort to move people through the process. If someone's hearing a question and gives an answer, there's also the problem if they go to building and safety staff, even if we have the cross trainings that I mentioned that are desirable, ultimately that's, there's going to be attrition, there's going to be issues happening, and that's just how,
I know, education is a difficult thing in the community. And with the
But maybe their default answer could be, if you're in a historic district, everything, from the street must be reviewed. If you're not, replacing within an existing opening would not require, like, if they can just retrain themselves to start out with, if you're in a historic district this, if not that.
Right. The only thing, while historic districts are at the forefront of our brains, they're a small percentage.
But that's why we
of
need to
city.
retrain them, right?
No, I
To
understand
start
that.
out with that.
Yeah, that would totally be how we would discuss
Yeah.
it with the
Maybe we could
talking to
start
staff.
hanging signs like they do at banks in the DMV that says, if you're in a historic district.
Well, then we'll have a lot of other signs.
Please.
Yeah.
And we have sign laws,
Signs.
so.
Okay.
Get
Any
involved.
No,
other?
but I understand
Very.
the issue. I'll get an answer on garage doors just so that we all know, since I'm a little uncertain. And I'll discuss it with my colleagues who kind of handle the counter more to see whether A, is that even feasible, and B, what are their thoughts? And then we already know that training is something we want to do.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Okay, then with that, we'll move to 8C, Glendale Register Plaque Program.
Okay, hold on one second. Okay. Commissioner Shire recently provided us some information about Glendale Register properties that have plaques and those that don't have plaques. We obviously want our properties to have plaques, but we don't have a legal mechanism to require it at this point. It is not in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which covers the Glendale Register, and it's not in our Mills Act contracts. My thought is we do plan to bring to council, which we will bring to the commission before we go to council, revisions to the Mills Act that we've discussed now several years ago in order to provide more accountability for owners of Mills Act properties. It will be easy enough once we're opening that ordinance to throw in that the Mills Act requires that a plaque be placed on the property. I'm personally hesitant to require it of a Glendale Register property that isn't applying for the Mills Act, only because we've always discussed how we want that to be a free process to remove any sense of a disincentive. Now, a plaque, we're talking about $500, $600, $700, which is great. It's not, for many of our property owners, that's probably not an obstacle, but it could be for some. And we also have a number of properties that are being designated kind of before a sale, kind of a last minute, oh my God, I want to get this protected before it's sold. Will that owner be inclined to put a plaque up? Will the timeline work? So we could add it to the Glendale Register ordinance, and we're happy to hear from the commission your opinions about that. My sense is that it would be a bit of a disincentive. If we do it through the Mills Act, we'd capture most every property that gets designated, but we do have a number that don't go through the Mills Act. And we also, Deepika Dhaliwal has recently provided a kind of a handout that we're going to include. We're revising the instructions for our Glendale Register application and also revising the application. So we're going to have instructions for this that go with the application so that it'll be kind of, it's currently in the instructions, and the instructions imply that it's mandatory, but there's nothing in our code that makes it mandatory, so we can't base it on the instructions. So, so that, I think, will alert more people to the fact that plaques are a great idea and you should do it. And then if we make it mandatory under the Mills Act or under the Glendale Register, then obviously we can make it happen. So, and we haven't had a chance to kind of go through our records of plaques to verify against Commissioner Shire's list, but we have a record of every plaque that's been installed in the last 10 years, and we don't have good records for anything before that, but we have some. So we'd have to kind of piece together what Commissioner Shire found versus what records we have. And then if it became mandatory, it becomes another question for our city attorney in terms of, can we retroactively require someone to do it, or is it just something moving forward?
So can we give staff some direction if you feel Glendale Register property should have plaques as well as Mills Act, or just Mills Act? It sounded like that was a question to us.
Most of them are Mills Act.
Yeah,
There are a few that aren't.
99%.
I can't really imagine when it would be a disincentive. I mean, are you implying somebody might not want to move forward with their register application because they might have to pay for a plaque? Is that what you're thinking?
Possibly. I can imagine a situation where we created Criterion 5 for, actually that's not a good example, because Criterion 5, someone has enough money to build something behind a house.
Right.
So it's more for these properties that are for sale, where it's kind of a rush on the owner's part to get this listed on the Glendale Register.
Like Casa Verdugo.
Casa Verdugo would be a good recent example. And I don't want to speak to whether, you know, the timeline and getting this done and making sure it happens before the transfer of the property, because we'd certainly want it to be installed on the property by the owner who's asking for it, instead of being handed to the next owner and then us having to kind of police that somehow. You know, I personally think it should be on every property, but I also, we've been very, very consistent over time to try to remove any sense of obstacle to Glendale Register listing. And this would be, you know, maybe not an insurmountable one for most people, but it could be, so that's my main hesitance.
You want to remove obstacles to the Glendale?
To applying for the Glendale
apply.
Register.
Okay.
No.
Well, could we not require it, and then obviously if there's a situation that happens, and because of the Mills Act, you don't have maybe an illegal mechanism to enforce it, then that one or two falls through the cracks. But at least if it's mandatory on both, written somewhere.
Mandatory for the Glendale Register
No, for
also?
for both.
Yeah,
Because, for instance, here you have the Masonic Temple, right? Glendale Register property, no Mills Act, right? So it'll be no.
No.
Oh, they did get a Mills Act?
Yeah, that's
Okay, which is the one
that's a
recent?
good Mills Act. So.
Which is the recent?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's Casa Verdugo.
Casa Verdugo,
Okay.
yeah. Best.
But you would have wanted a plaque on that, right? And historic property, so people driving by or, you know, are aware of this amazing resource we have. I think we should require it.
Well, and I would think that somebody purchasing a Mills Act property would have a sense of pride and desire to.
Right, and
What do you think?
We're totally on, staff is on board with Mills Act making it mandatory.
No, he's a good registrar.
The question is, Casa Verdugo didn't apply for the Mills Act. They just have the Glendale Register.
Oh, that's true.
And-
No, I would want it on register.
And we do have examples like the Elliott House that is going to be applying for the Craftsman on Louise. It's going to be applying for Mills Act and has been on the register for years. So over time, some of those properties, new owners might recognize the value of the Mills Act, where a longtime owner who's, you know, house rich and maybe cash poor might not be as interested in doing it. So, but if we make it mandatory in the Glendale Register, we'd have to also revise the ordinance to kind of put that in there. But the Mills Act, the contract is kind of an easier way to go on that.
Property owners come in all shapes and sizes, that's all I can tell you. Some people find value in these things and some people don't. It's just the way that it is, unfortunately. Or fortunately.
Well, let's go forward with our ideal then, that both have the requirement, Glendale Register and Mills Act.
Yes.
Set the bar high.
Okay.
Who pays for the current plaques?
The owner.
does.
The owner does.
That's
And
the
has
discussion.
anyone declined for any reason under the register for Glendale?
Well, that's the thing, it's never been mandatory. We've treated it as a voluntary program since forever now.
Meaning they reach out to you when they want a plaque rather than a
We
city reaching out.
talk, so some people are excited about it and want it, and it's kind of right up front. It's in the instructions for the Glendale Register. I can't say that I've, or my colleagues have mentioned it to every single applicant. It comes up a lot, but we've never said, oh, you have to do this. We've never
Are there
put
any
it that way.
requirements on where the plaque must go on the property?
We use our judgment on that. Generally, it goes either on the wall somewhere near the front door. A lot of people have put it either on a stone or a concrete plinth kind of near the sidewalk because they may not want people walking up to look to see what the plaque says.
If we mandate it, would we have to put that somewhere?
No,
staff
in the
reviews.
instructions that Deepika put together, we kind of show an example. We control the overall appearance and language of the plaque.
That was my next
But
question.
we do work with the applicants. Some applicants have asked us to edit, and within reason, we're open to that. Some edits we have not been able to approve. So
For good reason, I'm sure.
I think some of them were amusing, but
Yes.
but so we have control over where it's placed. We make sure it doesn't obscure or affect any decorative features. That it's in a place where it's. We also look at the size to make sure it's proportional. We had one house that we usually do these rectangular plaques, but the house where they wanted to put it, it didn't fit. So we kind of turned our heads around and said, well, let's do this one vertical. We usually do them in bronze when we put the one on this building. Hopefully you've all seen the plaque on this building in the lobby. I just thought bronze is not going to look good in here, so we had it done in zinc, and it looked beautiful. So we're open to some variation, but we want to make sure the city seal is on all of them, that the overall format is more or less the same, and that the text doesn't privilege one house over another. They're pretty straightforward in what they say.
Ballpark, how many plaques are in the city now? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Oh, I only surveyed back about 8 to 10 years, figuring that maybe you had caught the other one, so I didn't go back to number 1.
Yeah, I only have
That needs to be done
a
from your records.
solid record of the one since I started here
Yeah.
10 years ago, and
How many?
I
So-
don't know, 30.
30.
Yeah,
And if we
40.
made it
And
mandatory.
then, but there were a lot before I started, so many older designations have plaques.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you. I think requiring would be great going forward.
Yeah, I agree.
And while we're talking about the Mills Act contract language, I know it's not agendized, but could we see that next month, the month after? Can we finalize that and actually take that to City Council?
Soon,
It's
yeah.
been a long time. and
Well, it has.
We've been
and
really
as
patient.
you know, a lot of preservation things were placed on what
Yes.
we've always called the back burner. The back burner is still burning.
Is
Thank
it?
goodness, it's still burning at least.
Good.
Oh, it's burnt. We're not. We didn't blow it out and ignore it.
Okay,
but,
good.
Everything's simmering nicely. Nothing's been
We should
forgotten.
crank it up a little.
I take that to heart, and
Thank you.
I want to also, and just trust us. Ultimately
Because-
we want to get it all done. so.
I mean, I think here's the downside. One of the requirements we had in the Mills Act was for that 5-year, house inspection, termite, all that. So we're losing year by year, new properties coming on every year where we're losing that opportunity to have that mandated. And some people really
Well,
care
no,
about their properties and
what
are
I-
doing that anyway, and some are not.
I believe, I have a proposal that will go to the city council, to the city attorney before it comes to you, just we have to talk about it in-house, about how to make it retroactive to all of our Mills Act properties.
Excellent.
So that's my goal, is that it applies to every property. And I'll just preview it for you, so you know where I'm going instead of being mysterious. The idea would be, we would reach out to all of the owners of Mills Act properties, previously contracted, and give them the option of, here are the requirements that you need to now meet, which would be the site plan, the keyed photographs, the 5-year cycle of termite reports and house inspections. If you choose not to do that, the city will choose to not renew your contract, which is different than canceling a contract. And this may backfire a little bit, because you can't just cancel a contract. It's a 10-year contract, so we would not continue to renew it each year after that. So it would still be a 10-year contract from the date of non-renewal. And over that time, the tax savings, each year the assessor will incrementally drop the tax savings until in the 10th year it's down to 0, and they'll be paying whatever the tax rate that's appropriate for that property is. Which I think is an incentive for many more recent buyers, who are longtime buyers, or longtime owners, I'm sorry. They may not be inclined to kind of do this, and we may lose some of the protection of the Mills Act, but as we all know, the Glendale Register gives us pretty much the same level of protection. What it doesn't have is the same penalty attached to it, which is the real stick of the Mills Act.
So it would remain a historic landmark.
Of
It
course,
just would
yeah,
not
we
be-
never,
Not the
yeah,
tax savings.
it wouldn't even be a question to remove it from the register.
Got it.
So would now be the time to put the plaque in there as well and make that retroactive, so you have a way to monitor or mandate, or no?
We could run that by the city attorney. That feels a little harder to do,
Okay.
because that's I could, yeah. Top of my head, that's harder. Maybe it really isn't. So we'll put it in the request, in the discussion.
Thank you. Okay, anything else on 8C?
Just,
Okay, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say that for Hassan Haghani.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was all. We would like to adjourn it in honor and memory of Hassan Haghani, somebody who was very instrumental in creating the Glendale of today, who loved this place, and he was a great mentor to all of us. So I miss him dearly. So
Thank you.
on that.
Second.
Okay, meeting adjourned. The time is 7:15.